Hey everybody, this is Ryan from It Takes Two, and today we're going to be making a fake beam. Check it out. So the first thing, before we start getting dug into this new project, a couple things to go over first. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about this material. The material that I'm going to use for this project here today is called basswood. It's a really light wood. You can use anything for one of these projects, but a couple things to keep in mind. These do get pretty big. This one will be about 12 feet long, and you got to lift it up over your head, right, to install it. So I try and make these with the lightest possible material I can find. So the mill that I go to has this basswood, and he keeps it in 2-inch thick boards, and then I have him resaw it. So not only is it nice and light, but when he resaws it, what you'll see here in a minute is it gives a really nice rough texture to it, so that real sawmill look. Most people, when they want to do these beams, they want them to look as rustic as possible. So you can start with any wood like a pine from your local big box, and then after the fact you can kind of rough it up a little bit. That step is actually already taken care of for us, but there's a couple things to keep in mind and make sure that we keep that throughout the whole process, and it'll save us some time at the end of the project. So the next thing about this material, the fact that it is in the 2-inch thick sections, he has to resaw it for me, but when he does that, what it does is it gives us bookmarked pieces. So bookmarked pieces means that are boards that are coming off successively from the same log. What that helps with is this beam, like I mentioned, is going to be 12 feet long, but you can see my boards here are anywhere between 6 and 7 feet long. Actually, this one's even a little bit shorter. So we're going to have to piece together several boards to make a long enough run, both for the whole length of it and for the width and height of it. So what the bookmarked ends give us is we can now match these boards that came off the log. Board here, this is the first one that came off, and then this is the second piece, or what was left over. The nice thing about this, though, is because this beam is going to be 12 feet long, we're going to have to take a bunch of sections and put them all together. But what we can do is, if you look at this board here, when they resaw it, basically what you're getting is a bookmarked piece. So what that means is successive parts or successive boards that come off of the same log. But what you can see here, if you look at this one, the grain pattern and all of the identification from the wood is all going to be symmetric. So what we'll do is, when we're going through this, we'll pair these two up, and then when we put them together, it makes it look like it's actually just one constant piece of material. So from that standpoint, joining these two pieces actually make it look like it was one wider board. What we'll have to do is, on the ends, we'll just try and make sure that we can kind of match up the grain pattern from one piece to the next, just to make sure that it looks cohesive. But before we do that, or before we get into this too much, what we're going to do is just go through here and basically lay out our boards. And what I'm going to do is, you can see the nice rough texture that's on these from running them through the mill. I don't want to lose this, so what I'm going to do is identify which sides of the boards I want to be exposed, so which ones are going to be on the outside, and I'm going to mark those, and then I'm going to mark each board which one it bookends with, so that we can kind of keep them together. What I'll do is, then when we run them through the planer, I will keep the face that I want away from the blade, so I'll keep it face down. This way, when we go through and all of our boards are done, we join them up and make the beam, I won't have to go through and do a bunch of work to rough up the boards to give them that kind of rustic feel. They'll already kind of be done for us. So take a few minutes now and go through and mark out your boards, make sure that you've got them all laid out, which ones you want to use, which ones you're going to kind of join together. It'll save you a ton of time at the end. All right, so we've got all of our boards over here laid out. I got them labeled A, B, and C, one side, two side, three side, and then making sure I've got enough for the width and enough for the length. And I've labeled them all here, so this way I know this always goes face down, so I don't lose that rough texture that we're looking for here. So now we're gonna make a lot of sawdust because we gotta plane all of these down so that they're all the same thickness, which is gonna be a lot. So we're on day 2 of our fake beam here. I've taken and planed down all of our wood to the same thickness. We're about 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch. Thickness really isn't that critical. I just try and make sure that all the boards are the same thickness. And like I told you, we just planed down the one side, so we've got one side that's smooth, and then we've left the rough sawn look on our face of the boards. This is going to be the exterior of the board. So what I'm doing now is laying out our boards. So these two sets of boards here are going to be the face, so like the longer of the width basically of the beam. So what we're going to do, remember when we talked about these boards coming off of thicker, these boards were cut down from thicker pieces. So basically they came off like this, and then they got cut in half and they came out like this. So they're bookmarked pieces. So which means they're basically mirror images because they're basically cut in half. So now what we're going to do is make these boards that are going to be, we need a 10-inch wide board for the face. So what we're going to do is basically square up these two boards so that we can join them together, and then the same thing here. And then we'll join them all up so that we can get our 12-foot length for the overall piece. To do that, what we're going to do is just make a straight edge, and we're going to cut right down both sides of these separately, and then we'll join them up. So check it out.
So does anybody else feel like we should like trademark some of these sayings, like check it out and bookmark and for now? Like, we are terrible commentators. If it wasn't for our sparkling personalities, I don't know if we'd make it. So check us out.
Top of the face frame, or the face of our beam, is all done. To put this together, basically we had to take 2 boards to get the width and then 2 boards to get the length. So this is actually 4 pieces that I put all together, again using the bookmark of the pieces themselves so the grains match, and it makes it look at least as most like one continuous piece as possible. But you can see, just using pocket hole screws and the jig to put this together, the 2 pieces here, and then join the 2 pieces together at the middle too. So now that we have this piece, we're going to go ahead and move on to the sides of our beam. So to do that, same concept, we're just going to go ahead and rip these down to the width that we need, square up the edges, and then we'll join them together. With that done, then we'll do pocket hole screws again to the actual face of it and put the whole beam together.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt again. Ryan's going to kill me for saying this, but I am super embarrassed about our garage. And I know it's a workspace, but it is so ugly. And for a designer, it's really hard to look at. these clips. So if he would ever not have a job to do, then we could get in there and clean it out. So if anyone's interested in seeing like a cool clean out your garage and make it look like a better environment for a workspace, give me a thumbs up, because I think he needs to know that it needs to look cuter than it does.
Alright, so we've got the long edges of both boards all squared up after we ran it through the table saw and the circular saw. Now what we want to do is square up both ends so that when we meet them together, there'll be a nice tight square fit. So if you remember, we marked those boards at the beginning of this before we started running them through the planer, so the bookends. So when we cut these two, basically when we join them up, it'll look pretty seamless in terms of the grain pattern, which will make it look like it was all coming off of one board instead of two. So to make sure that we get a good cut here, what we're going to do is collapse these back together. Clamp them up so they're both square edges to each other, and then we're going to run them through the circular, the miter saw, so that we can get a nice clean edge. Once we get that all taken care of and it's all the fit's looking good, I'll go ahead and throw some pocket hole screws in here to pull the two boards together. Then we'll be ready to join them to our main piece. Alright, so you can see we've got our box all constructed here. So just our hollow beam after we've attached the sides and the top here. And you can see, hopefully, see the grain pattern, so that rough sawn cut that we kept by not planing this side of the wood. We've kept that all throughout the beam. You can see here, I wanted to call out too, we've got our seam here because obviously we had to do two long pieces to join them together. Make sure that you're staggering the seams if you have to do that. So you don't want that seam for the top and the sides to line up. This way it gives it a little bit more strength. But you can see when we match the grain from those bookmark pieces, it goes together pretty good. We'll take care of these little bit of cracks here that we're showing, or a little bit of gaps in between the boards. Once we go to finish it, this is going to be stained. But before we do that, what I wanted to show you next was how we take kind of some of this rough edge here, or I should say kind of sharp edge. The intent on some of these beams is really to make them look like they're hand hewn, which is basically means they're cut by hand. So what we're going to do now is kind of shape this beam a little bit and blend the pieces together from like the top to the bottom here. And to do that, we're going to just use a basic rasp. So we're going to kind of come over the edge here and kind of smooth it over, round it up a little bit, and then we'll use this sharp edge here to kind of go across the beam like so, and it'll actually kind of mimic some of these striations that you'll get from the saw itself when these boards are cut. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, so we basically have our shell of our beam. It's just a hollow out U channel here, you can see. What we need to do now is basically build a structure for this to be attached to. So it's going to be a 2 by something, depending on what you're going to do. For this one particularly, it's a large beam, obviously, as you can see. It's going down the center of a room, and right down the center of that room, or center of the beam rather, we're going to hang a light from it. What you don't want to do is have that light, the light's weight, suspended from the beam. So what we're going to do is basically make a structure that's going to sit inside the beam that will attach the electrical box to. So all of that weight will go into the electrical box, and then that whole structure will be attached to the ceiling joists. So we're going to make one main one here that all the electrical and all the weight of the light itself will go through. Then at the two ends we'll just make something a little bit more simple that will again attach to the ceiling, will go into the joist, and then we'll just kind of pin that or nail that into those end pieces, and then these pieces here. So let's do that next. so now we have our main supports system for the electrical side of this. So we've got the, I put a ceiling box fan, already mounted it on here. And then this will just get attached to the ceiling joists. And you can see it'll just slide right in there. It's still sitting a little proud yet because I haven't cut the hole to let the ceiling box recess into the front panel here. But we'll do that in a little bit. I also made two similar items here, just with some 2x3 and some 2x2. Same thing, we'll put these on the ends on either side. They'll go up into the joist with some heavy duty screws. And when we lift up the beam, we can attach it to the center sections and then the end sections. Now, this next step is totally optional. I've done it both ways, but this beam particularly, it's 12 feet long and it's going up on a ceiling that's about 13 feet off the ground. So it's going to be difficult getting it up there and getting it into place. It'll take a couple people to do so. The thing you got to keep in mind when you're doing things like this, no walls in your house are going to be square, right? So as you're lifting this beam into place, when you get up to the corner of the ceiling and the wall, it will not be square. So one way you could do it is actually take the angle of that corner and then scribe it onto the beam, put it up there, do that on both sides and make sure that your length is perfect. Otherwise you're going to have a gap. The whole intent of these beams is to look like they were built from the ground up. So basically you would be drywalling up to the beam. So you don't want a gap at the end of the beam up against the drywall because it's going to look fake. So for smaller beams, shorter ceilings, I've done it just like I described with the scribing and making sure that it's nice and tight, even kind of pounding it into the drywall a little bit to make sure it looks good. Again, this one, not really going to be able to do that. So another option that you can do is basically make a support bracket or what looks like a support bracket out of a piece of sheet metal. So the way that this guy's going to go on there, it's going to fit right onto the beam like this and wrap around, and then this way it looks like it's just part of the beam itself. And I'll put one of these on either end, and this way it doesn't really matter how square the end of the beam is itself. I can slide this end of the strap right up against the drywall. We'll put a couple screws in here and make them look like rivets. It'll make it look pretty cool, and then it'll cover up any gap. It'll make the installation way, way easier. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Again, you don't have to do that, but this is the way that I've done it.
I do have to say that I recommend the metal cleats at the end. It really takes the look to the next level. It really elevates it and gives it that rustic look of the beam. So I just feel that it's that custom look that just goes above and beyond. And you don't have to keep it that silver color. So if you have a certain color you're using in the room with your hardware pieces, whether it be like a matte gold or a black, you can spray these pieces and that just takes it to the next level. in this clip and the next few clips, you're going to see Ryan changing the color of the beam. So this is one of the last steps that we are doing before installation. So this is the part where you can really take this project to the next level and really add the design element you're looking for in the space. So you could leave it natural if you wanted to have it more of a brighter color. But for this bedroom, we had put shiplap up on the walls and up on the ceiling. So the ceiling is very light and bright. So we wanted this piece to really stand out. So the new LVP flooring that I selected for their bedroom, we use that as our starting point to kind of pick the right perfect color to coordinate with the flooring. So it's got like some grayed browns in it. So we decided to use that to pick a color from there, and we're staining this piece to match. So the whole room from top to bottom is very cohesive, and then it allows this piece to really stand out next to that white shiplap. And then the centerpiece of the whole thing is a really gorgeous light fixture that is going to pop off this dark color. So as he's doing this, he's also going to have to fill in some of the gaps and some of the spaces from when he put all the pieces together, you know, when he bookmarked them. So we are going to see him in the next clip. He's going to take the shavings from when he planed the wood. So it's the actual sawdust from the wood pieces, and he's going to use the same stain to make his own filler. So you're just going to mix it up, and you're going to make your own filler, as he's doing here, to fill in those gaps so it looks very seamless and that everything stains up nicely. So you're not trying to match a wood filler off the shelf and then it's going to stand out. So here he made his own so that it'll all blend really nicely.
It's install day here for our faux beam. We're at our client's house this morning. I'm just getting ready to put up the support brackets up into the ceiling and get that going. But before I started that and before I took the beam inside, I wanted to give you a look at it just so that you could see it out in the open. So this is it. You can see how really that keeping the rough sawn look here and then just staining on top of it really came out pretty well. Overall, you can see here where we joined up those boards, really kind of came out pretty well, very seamless, makes it look like it's all one piece. So I'm really happy with the way this came out. So let's go ahead and get it up in the wall and see how it goes.
I'm wearing Fendi, money spending, all I wanna do is flex, flex. I'm not pretending, only trending, all I wanna do is flex, just flex. I'm wearing Fendi, money spending, all I wanna do is flex, flex. I'm not pretending, only trending, all
So with the final touches, Ryan has gone ahead and put the light up and fastened it to the electrical box that he put in. And he's going to get all the light bulbs installed and let there be light. So we're going to wrap up this beam video with some finished photos of our client's bedroom makeover. We added some white shiplap to the peak ceiling, the weathered wood walls that you see, a featured board and batten wall behind the bed, new furnishings, rugs, and bedding. If you stayed with us to the end, we appreciate you hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this content, give us a follow and like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.